Hey, what's up, friends? This is Brent Uris, productivity coach. What I do is I guide people into sustainable, high-level productivity. Hello. It's my first video in a few months. It's been a little while. I apologize for being absent. The main reason is that we moved homes. So we actually left our old home and we bought this new house in a whole new town. And it was, a really exciting development for myself and my family, my wife and I, my cat, presumably. But the home requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of renovation. There's a lot about it that needed some very, very urgent attention. And so all of our spare time has gone to that. And so that's what I've been up to the last little while, as well as coaching and doing everything else that I do. And but it doesn't mean I haven't been thinking about you. And I've been thinking about all sorts of things that I want to talk about with you. And something that, like a theme that I can't get out of my head is, what does it mean to get into a place? Like, what kind of person do we need to be, or what kind of operating system do we need to operate from in order to do our best productivity? And so just to remind you of the import of productivity, or the reason why I've dedicated my whole thing about it, is that like when we're productive, which means when we know what the most important stuff is to do and we do it and we get ourselves to do it and we don't psych ourselves out of doing it, and consistently over time we get it done so that like over weeks and months we're doing our most important shit, that is us living at our purpose, living according to our purpose. That is us having inner potential and manifesting it so that it's like we can see how great we can become, how much we can do, how much we're capable of, how much we can serve, how much we can benefit the world. And to me, like, that's everything. That's literally everything. That's the only thing that matters. I don't know anything else that matters than this. It's like being in this place of sustainable, high-level productivity where we're doing our most important shit every day. So that's where my head's at, right? And so there's like a lot of different facets, a little different ways of coming at the conversation. But for me, it's the headspace. It's like, how do you go about it? And the problem is that, like, when I read all sorts of stuff about productivity, so I read a lot of books on how to set habits, the Pomodoro technique. There's all sorts of like different ways of being productive, and they're good and they're helpful and they work. But what I keep finding, at least for myself, and certainly the people that I attract and the people that I talk to, it's the problem is not like I don't know what to do. Like, we do know what to do. Like, we have all these techniques, but how do we actually get ourselves to do what we need to do every day? Because what I find is that whenever I'm on some kind of a track, whenever I'm doing something, and maybe I have, like, say, a ritual, a morning routine, or I have something I'm doing every day, or I'm trying out the Pomodoro technique, it'll work for a little while and then I'll stop. I'll just have a good streak going and then I'll stop. And I don't know why. And I see a lot of people complaining, online, and I spend a lot of time on r/getdisciplined on Reddit. And like the big question, like the number one question that is just constantly being asked and attempting to be answered is, why do I know what I should be doing, but I don't do it? I had this like good streak for a little while and now I can't do it. And like, that's the big thing. So that's where my whole attention is focused. Sorry, I get a little worked up when I talk about this. I gotta take a breath. True story. And the other thing too is that, like, whenever I talk on the camera, like something that like I'm really working through right now is I want to like, speak really quickly in order to keep your attention so you're not like gonna click away or something. But then I just end up like talking and I feel like I'm getting red in the face. And so I also have to like learn how to slow down in order to properly transmit this message. So that's a little behind the scenes in terms of what I'm going through with video making. Nevertheless, see, right? I was like, oh my God, their attention, got to get the attention back. So nevertheless, what I want to do is I want to share with you the latest and best insight that I have in that regard, where I've noticed in my discussions of productivity and in working with clients one-on-one that there's like these two different schools of productivity, i.e., living up to our life's potential. And so I've come to label them as productivity 1 and productivity 2. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe them to you, what they are, productivity 1, productivity 2. And I'm basically going to invite you to go into productivity 2, which I'll probably, kind of show as the superior choice between the two. And then when after that, so we'll look at both, and I'll recommend that you do too. And then I'll share with you just like the benefits of it, and it'll become really clear. And then we'll call it a day. And then maybe I'll share some techniques on how to actually stay in productivity too. I think that would be good as well. A little bit of water. So, productivity 1, closely associated with spiral dynamics stage orange, if you're at all keeping up with spiral dynamics. If not, very, very important to check it out. Super, super, super cool study. I recommend checking out Leo Gura's from actualize.org, his YouTube series on spiral dynamics. It's just fucking yummy. It's just so good and so interesting. Nevertheless, stage orange. Productivity 1 is focused on the goal at the expense of the self, we could say. So nothing is more important than the goal. The goal is more important than that which is accomplishing the goal. So the kind of things we would say to ourselves when we are in productivity 1 is like, just go it, just go it, just do it, just go for it. No excuses, no blame, it's all your fault. It's all your responsibility. You're not doing enough. You're not trying hard enough. The saying of leave it all on the court. Like if you're not totally exhausted by the end, then it means you held back. If you don't follow through on the plan, then it's inexcusable. Like that, this sort of mentality of either success or total exhaustion, get rich or die trying. So that's all productivity 1. And there's something really admirable about it. And it has some utility at certain points, especially when there's like a really important goal and it's like really close and we went through all this trouble to get here. So let's just kind of go a little bit further. But generally speaking, whenever we make the goal more important than us and we are the vessel that is carrying us towards the goal, then we're immediately set out on a burnout course. We are on some kind of campaign that is ultimately going to fail. And that's why when we push ourselves in a particular direction, we push and push and push and we start to get a little bit of success, but then something happens at the end that erases all the progress. Or there's something that happens at the very end that invalidates all the victories that we have. So at its most intense scale, you have somebody who maybe gave their whole lives to a business, but then they just die of heart complications because of all the stress or something like that. Or it's just when you don't get any sleep on a smaller scale. You don't get any sleep in order to work on your business or study for your course or something. And then eventually you collapse and you are ineffective because you're not getting any sleep. So that's what happens from productivity 1. Productivity 1 is not interested in slowing down. It's not interested in compromise. Productivity 1 wants what it wants right now. And ultimately, productivity 1 is action from ego. It is the ego as the boss. And the ego being this aspect of ourselves that feels like constantly threatened and wants to attain and have and become more in order to reinforce itself and to stand out from other people. So that's productivity 1. Productivity 2 is productivity, but with the self as the higher priority than the goal. And the self, the relationship with the self, so focusing on a harmonious relationship with the self as the first priority, and the second priority is the goal, and so now pay attention to how the ego feels as I describe this. Pay attention if there's a part of, if your ego feels like it wants to contract as I say this, as I describe the following, because that will be a really big clue for you. And there's, you can rest assured there's a lot of value in what I'm about to share with you now. So I challenge you to be open to this if you feel like you're closing off a little bit. So productivity 2, yeah, so the self more important than the goal. Productivity 2 says it will take as long as it needs to take. Productivity 2 allows the process to take as long as it's going to take. In earlier videos, I've referenced one of my favorite metaphors for this, which is the metaphor of growing corn. And so in this earlier video, I believe it's on Coming to Center, I ask, what is the most expedited way by which you can grow corn? What's the fastest way to grow corn? And so you think about it and it's like, yeah, maybe like I can use the best fertilizer and I can use the best farming techniques and like and I can like do like my best possible farming and that will get me, the quickest and best corn. But at a certain point, after a certain point, you can't go any faster, and any attempts to expedite the corn will injure the corn and either kill that crop or slow it down. So it's this really profound lesson of, where are we trying to reach into the future and get things prematurely before they have gotten a chance to mature, especially if you're, say, investing in something or if you're trying some kind of long-term habit or what have you. So productivity 1 wants its result right now. Productivity 2 says the result will come when it's going to come and not a moment sooner. And in the meantime, I'm going to focus on developing a rhythm. I'm going to focus on developing a groove. In fact, I'm going to pay attention to all of the impatience and urgency that I have about getting to a future moment, which is just an endless treadmill, because when we get to a future moment, it becomes the now, which we're never interested in. So it's always the future, endless treadmill. So instead of being on that treadmill, which is productivity 1, productivity 2 is I'm going to bring all of my attention into this moment and I'm going to find fulfillment now. Productivity 2 asks, what is waiting for me when I finally get everything that I want? When I get everything that I want and there's nothing else that I want, what happens then? And everything's perfect, everything's done, everything's accomplished, all my ego desires, everything. What now? And you can take a second, right, to even imagine that. It just feels like, whoa, like, holy shit, like I'm just utterly good. Just utterly okay. So productivity 2 realizes that it's just a hypnosis to think that we need to get all this stuff or do all this stuff or have all these conditions be met in order to get that state that we're describing here. Instead, it's a state that you can allow now and live from, so that you can see that living now and being able to grapple with this opportunity right now is not better than any future moment. In fact, productivity 2 removes all chauvinism about moments. Chauvinism meaning having a sense of better or worse than, having a superior or inferior. From a chauvinist productivity 1 perspective, we think a future moment is better than this moment. We think that, having more is better than having less. But from a more scaled out productivity 2 perspective, neither is better nor worse. You would think that getting all the way to the end square of the board is the best. But the thing is that when you get there, that's when it's done. And that's the irony. And then you start looking back with nostalgia about everything you went through to get here. A lot of people refer to when they become successful, like, these times when they're just like in a garage or, working out of their basement or whatever, that even if they were extremely challenged, it was the best time of their lives because they just had this whole thing ahead of them and it was simple and it was pared down and it was just them and this project. And now it's become everything that it's become. But there's like a sweetness about that beginning. So what point of your life is the best point? Is it when you're 18? Is it when you're in your 20s? Is it like when you're at the end and you've got all this success? Somewhere in the middle? What's the best point? None of it. All of it. just now. So I'm losing the thread. What's the thread? Productivity 2 is no longer trying to get into the future. Productivity allows fulfillment right now, realizes fulfillment is not in the future. Fulfillment is only now or never. It's allowed now or not allowed. And then what happens is Productivity 2 prioritizes this rhythm, this rhythm and this groove that I'm talking about. So questions that are important to Productivity 2 are, what is the most I can do comfortably today while at the same time making sure that I get all of my needs met? How can I make sure I get enough exercise, enough good food, enough sleep, and also get as much work as I can possibly get done, so that every time I go through a 24-hour cycle, I am totally renewed, I'm totally refreshed. And every time I go through a week cycle, I'm totally renewed and totally refreshed. How can I make this lifestyle, and working with these opportunities that are present with me, how can I make it into something that is either enjoyable or something that I might have enthusiasm for? Or if not that, at least something that I can just kind of accept and just drop my conflict with. I can just do it and just kind of accept that this is for me to do right now. So for example, maybe you have a job and you don't like this job and you don't want to be in this job and you want to do something else instead. And maybe you want to work for another job. So you're, kind of doing your day job, but you're also applying for work on the side. And maybe it's taken a long time because it can be a really frustrating, long-winded process. A lot of the time can go on, it can go on just for too long. And so Productivity 1 is, I got to get that job as quickly as possible. Anxiety, stress, every day here is killing me. Productivity 2 is, how can I harmonize with this whole situation so that it doesn't hurt anymore? And maybe it's just asking a question like, what do I need to accept? What about my life can I not escape, so that really the only thing I can do right now is just accept? Just making sure my camera is on. What do I need to accept about my situation and just let it be, so that I can drop my conflict with it, so that I can find flow? Because the truth of the matter is that from Productivity 2's perspective, you can find flow in every life situation. You can find flow with every activity. If you're interested in this concept of flow, I have other videos where I've gone into deep detail on flow and the flow state, and the importance of it and the techniques behind it. So definitely recommend those. From Productivity 2's perspective, we just want a boat that floats. We want a thing that works. We want to have an operation that is sustainable in the long term. Because once we do that, and once we're no longer urgently waiting for something, and there's just like something so important about this urgency and this waiting piece that needs to be observed, then we're no longer against life. Because to be attempting to get into the future is the same as attempting to escape the present moment, which is insanity. Like, imagine being in an experience and trying to escape your own experience. That's not how any of this works. If it's your desire to change your experience and get in control of it and to change it according to your liking, then it's done not by escaping or trying to get out or trying to get into the future or hiding in denial or whatever, anything like that. It's changed by engaging with it fully, by dropping your conflict with it fully, and just bringing a full allowance into your reality exactly as it is, with all of the stuff about it that you don't like. You don't even have to like it. That's a cool thing. You don't have to change how you feel about it. But what does change is that you're no longer in denial of it. You're no longer trying to escape it. You're no longer trying to get away from it. Instead, you engage. It's like, okay, I'm going to move into this willingly. Seeing as I have no choice over any of this, I choose it. because that's a choice that I have. There's paradox there because it's like you have no choice. But if you choose that over which you have no choice, then you have choice. And that's power. There's this interesting power that comes in to your life when you choose that which is there for you to choose, that which is here for you now. And that power comes in the form of just the release of conflict, the release of angst, the release of againstness, a little bit of relief. Everything slows down a little bit. There's a little bit of stillness in your experience. Your experience stops feeling so hostile to you because you are dropping your hostility to it. And then maybe a little bit of opportunity opens up. Maybe you have a new perspective on something. Maybe it's like, oh wait, I can try doing this a little bit of a different way. Or maybe something just bothers you a little bit less than it did. And as you continue this process of dropping conflict, of engaging with your reality exactly as it is, accepting it as it is, bringing tons of acceptance in, then you find more and more opportunity to just slowly and gradually turn this reality into one that you want it to become. You're no longer rejecting reality. The urgency is gone, the waiting is gone, the impatience is gone, and you've reconnected totally with your life so completely. And pay attention to this part here. This is really it. So completely that it no longer matters if you get what you want. No longer matters if you succeed in the way that you want to succeed. Because you've already achieved the most important thing. And then as a result of achieving that, and if you've achieved it sincerely, and you know, there's a lot of self-deception that occurs around here. You know, there's a lot of fakery, but when we move into a psychology like that, then we end up receiving the things we want. And then when it does, it's weird. It's like, yeah, but it's not, it's so strange. It's like, yeah, okay, great. It's really good and there's gratitude. It feels amazing, but you realize you never needed it. It was just objects. It was just circumstances. It's kind of like, if you remember in high school, how there was like these cool kids in high school. Do you remember the cool kid? Like, think of a cool kid, and how like he just didn't care if you liked him or not. And like, that's what made him so cool. It's like that, but with life. With the stuff we want. So I suggest that you move into productivity too. And you can do that via like any kind of like these suggestions that I made. If you'd like something to practice, you could try listing out writing out. Like if you really want to do this, right? If you want to like step into this mind space that I'm talking about, list out, what are my complaints with life? So that's number one. Number two would be, what am I waiting for? / what am I impatient for? Just list that out. Create a comprehensive list for both questions. And then when you're done, look at that list. And this would be step number 3. Step number 2. Whatever. So those 2 questions. And then what you do is you look at those and see that these are all the conditions that you've placed in between you and your wellness. And see if you can adopt a willingness to drop these conditions so that you no longer need these things. It's no longer necessary to receive these things. So you would intentionally say, like even with your words out loud, you'd say, I hereby drop the necessity to receive these things. It is no longer necessary to receive these things, to do these things, to become these things, to experience these things. None of this is necessary. You might say, I don't need any of this. there's nothing that I need. There's nothing that I need. You just feel that. It just feels like a breath of fresh air. And it's true. So this, ironically, this is where our highest productivity is, because from this place, we're so fucking centered, so unurgent, so not trying to reach, so willing to grapple with life as it is right now, that the universe just moves with you. It's like you can just kind of glide a little bit. You don't have to just keep hitting difficulty after difficulty. You develop this appreciation for divine timing. The timing of the universe. A trusting patience that all is well, all is on track. You're getting there. It's happening. There's time. You're not behind. You're doing enough. You're trying hard enough. Your intention is sincere. Your potential is unfolding. Because it is, but the irony is that the more you trust and allow that to be true and just bathe in the truth of it, it's not like the more quickly it happens, but the more it happens without drama, the more you can enjoy the ride as opposed to like worrying if you'll ever get there. Imagine just being able to enjoy the ride. Every part, every moment, every day, including this one, this day, this random Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. I'm filming this on a Wednesday. Just a random day. What a gift to give to yourself. So yeah, so that's the merits of productivity too. So I suggest it. So there we go. That's all this stuff. If you want a session, if you'd like to work together one-on-one, I would be delighted to meet you. You can have your first session for $5 Canadian. It's like $3.50 USD. It's an amazing deal. It's an amazing deal. I suggest you go for it if you want it. And I also have a link. I have a free course on sustainable high-level productivity, which I go into like much more depth on the nuts and bolts of doing that. It's a free video course. Just opt into my webpage to opt into my email list to get it. So the links for both are below now. That's all. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for hanging in there. Good to talk to you again. And let's pick this up soon. Bye.